if you've once been successful and if you have failed and then you grow again, then you grow twice as fast. And the reason being is that now you're not scared of losing everything because you've done it already. You're like, I know how to get there and come back. And so your risk appetite just hits through the roof and you go a lot more faster and harder. I think property typically is that game, right? Where, people who have learned it the hard way, their risk appetite and their advice is like gold words, right? Those are the golden nuggets. You need to basically grab it because they have seen the bottom and they've come back up and they exactly know the direction that you. And so to your point, I need to basically follow those who have been there, who have done that, who are getting there. This makes a lot more sense. You're listening to Helpmebuy Property Podcast, powered by Investor Partner Group. We help improve lifestyles by building scalable and sustainable generational wealth and passive income streams. We do this via our ecosystem that is a one-stop shop to all property investment needs, from evidence-based, data-driven buyers agency, industry-renowned portfolio reviews and property strategies, property development with and for clients, tax, SMSF, business structures advisory, and cash flow real estate. Everything we do is to help people achieve financial independence and not just basic financial freedom by using property as a tool and as a medium. Presently, we've launched Australian Property Academy, where we are training and teaching buyers agents, property advisors, property strategic partners, and secrets to finding investor-grade properties to astute investors. Connect now to experience it yourself or drop in a line below at info@helpmebuy.com.au to get more information. Be kind and happy investing. Today's topic is all about sole traders and company operators and what is better to use when you are going to invest into property. Now, to discuss this topic and a very important topic, I have someone super savage. I have Peter from Savage Finance, or is it Savage Capital?
Savage Money.
Savage Money, yes. Amazing name, bro. How are you today?
Good, mate. Sounds like a payday win. I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining on an Actionable podcast, man. Watch till the very end because you're going to break the ice and unpack sole traders versus company returns. And look, I learned this lesson really hard way, right? And I think everyone in this space basically does this, right? When you talk about sole traders and, working as a sole trader. And so let's take a step back and talk a bit about why do people start off with sole trading?
Well, I think it's just the default. You get an ABN,
yes.
You go to your accountant and they go, we'll just put you as a sole trader, and they will leave you there pretty much until you pester them.
Yes.
Unless you get a really switched on accountant who understands business advisory. Yes. But a lot of them don't practice what they preach.
Yeah. And it's a simple thing, right? It's a simple business structure. People don't have a lot of money. And so technically they're like, I just want to start. I don't want to invest a lot of money right now. And so, naturally, they start off with the sole trader. And like majority of them don't even register for GST because they're like, I don't know what sort of money I'm going to make. I'm going to, save and declare no income to myself. And basically that's the entry point. That's the starting point.
It's funny you say that because it's not about how much money they're going to make. They don't know what GST is.
Yes.
Because generally, like predominantly I deal with a lot of tradies. They have no idea BAS, GST, anything is. Well, I'm good at it. And they figure it out. So all they're good is their trade. And they just kind of just figure it out as they go along. And then I guess they always get hit with a GST bill or a BAS, something like that.
That's true.
Then they usually spend the first few years just sorting it out. And most of them have no idea.
That's true. And I think you're very right. I think it's very reactive as well. It's always the tax time. They're trying to think and, there's this massive tax bill and my cash flow is basically left and all of those things, right? And so, that's so true. Let's talk a bit about cons of being a sole trader. Like, yes, it's great. It's a good entry point. You don't spend a lot of money. But as a business owner, there is a lot more protection that, the company offers you, right?
Well, that's correct as well. Like if you're a sole trader, you manage to get a couple of properties, you got a couple of vehicles, and you somehow get an employee. You get to a level where something bad happens. You're very liable. Yeah. And it just takes to have that conversation. Generally, that conversation happens a lot later than it should. Hey, the business is going well. Maybe we should look at changing entities. Never on income.
Yes.
It's always about protection.
Yes.
Not about paying tax.
Yes.
Just I kind of find it a bit weird with the industry.
Yes. And it's so funny, like between sole trader and business, right? It's a difference of almost $1,000. That's all it is, right? ABN versus, setting up a company. And even $1,000, I'm trying to be, I'm projecting it a bit over
what I always say to my clients is that it's a good idea to grow a company as fast as possible and set up PayYG, because you were PayYG, you understand how to live with a payslip. You top up with a payslip and live within those means, you will do better financially and you will understand quicker.
100%.
And try to do drawings, pulling money out whenever you want.
100%.
Because you have to abide by those rules. So I feel like when you go to a company definitely a company, not to trust, the accountant teaches you a lot more. And I find accountants don't teach unless you ask.
Yeah.
Like they're worn out after the last 30 years or something. They're underpaid.
Yes. And most accountants, I understand as to why, they're not proactive, because, they are working by a dollar, or they are working by an hour, right? So, naturally their mindset is, this guy's making square root of zero anyway, so I can't charge him $10,000 bill. So I don't need to pay him $12 advice, right?
That's where it comes down to, is get paid by the value add. Accountants, a lot of accountants don't add a lot of value.
100%.
They're then literally not adding enough value to it to build that kind of knowledge.
Yes. And so let's talk a bit about the company side of things. So why is company a lot better from a sole trader, purely from a business perspective? And then we are going to come back to the property investing, and we're going to, take a real deep dive into, how does company works, how does sole trading works. So separate legal entity, of course, that makes a lot more sense. The risk is capped. Liability, what about that?
Well, the liability, it's just like, it's funny that the whole system was created for asset protection. You technically own it, but you don't. It's all about the piece of paper, which is good because it keeps risky assets at an arm length.
Yes.
And look, there's so many different ways to own the same structure, but it's set up for the big wigs. They've stepped this up for themselves, and that's why it hasn't really pushed down into the lower socioeconomic areas.
100%.
A lot of people don't understand how it works, and I think it's the big end of town, the big companies, they use it best.
Yes.
How to push around the profits.
Yes.
How to get out of paying tax. Well, they're not getting out of paying tax, but they find ways to move it around it.
Yeah.
I think that's where you should be looking to copy the same, not so much the tax avoid, but it's just the structure, the flow effect of money. Just once you get your head around it, it does get more appealing as well.
Definitely.
And banks just,
especially
with like just the company in general. Just it's like, as soon as you have a company, banks just look at you completely different.
100%.
Liabilities. It's like they just instantly
different person.
They're like, you're a company, no worries.
Yes.
Asset-backed company.
Yes.
You have a vehicle. Go on.
Yes, 100%. And I think it comes down to a lot of the financial acumen that comes almost as you set up as a company, right? I remember back in those days when I used to be a sole trader, or when I first started my own business. Typically, you have one bank account that you're rolling everything through, and then at the tax time, you're like, I shouldn't have done this, and I should have kept some of these separate. Whereas as a company, it's almost like, mandatory for you to have separate bank accounts, etc. So a lot of these things are basically like you got to learn as soon as you basically get the company, automatically.
Hot tip. Do not go back to the bank you bank with and run your business from to get a home loan. Absolutely stupidest thing you think that. Borrowing power's gone.
100%, because they just know too much about you, right?
Oh, it's all about, it's what we do. We make people look sexy. And I've seen people's bank accounts.
Yes.
But I'll just touch on a little story actually, because everyone goes sole trader first.
Yes.
I didn't do it. I've got a business coach, and I've sat in the room with people with hundreds of millions of dollars, and I kind of watched how they work. I rolled into my accountant and I was like, all right, how many mortgage brokers you got? I got 12. Right? Because he's like, go sole trader.
Yeah.
All right. What are they? He's like, we got 7 sole traders, 3 in trust, 1 company.
Yeah.
Who's making the most money?
Yeah.
Company. Fucking sign me up. That's it. We're company day one. It was a no-brainer but also I built my business to be a financial beast. I want as much borrowing power. I thought if I set myself AYG, I understand how finance works.
Yeah.
My business is going to be the most attractive business it can be for lending.
100%.
Which means company borrowing, pay slips, all vehicles held within the company, and net profit. I need net profit at the end of every year.
Yeah.
Because if you make $1 or you make 10 million, it's taxed the same rate.
100%.
And that's what I want to do.
100%.
So that little story is like, I just asked the accountant the right questions. It's funny because he knows the answer, but he doesn't know how to give you the answer. You have to ask him. I got to the bottom.
Get out of it.
Yeah, you literally, but it's funny because you can have a conversation with a really good accountant. They've been asked so many times, I'm paying too much tax. You ask them the right questions. It's like they fire up. So, oh my God, I remember why I'm an accountant. You ask them really good questions. And it's like all this just stuff comes out because I'll go to the client, we'll look at their business financials. And what will happen is I look at it and I go, look, you got 2 modes, wealth creation or tax saving.
Yeah.
You stay in this tax saving mode, you can do
yeah.
Go back to your accountant and look at your books. So if you lodge this, because I look at a lot of drafts, if you lodge this because I can see what you've done. This is your borrowing power.
Yeah.
Go back to your accountant and ask, look, like, let's get that income up a little bit. Like, you don't need, like, that's probably questionable. An extra X amount of income might cost you X, a couple of grand, 5 grand, 10 grand. Their borrowing power could be hundreds of thousands of. I said, if you lodge that, you get nothing this year for 12 months.
Yeah.
You pay that tax bill, you get another property. And they go, wait, so I paid that and I can get another property. But yeah, like, why wouldn't I? I said, exactly. But your accountant, when you're pulling teeth because he's not getting your taxable income down,
100%.
you need to go tell him your goals that you told me.
Yes.
And then suddenly your accountant's on the same path. He's going to give you better advice. He's going to bill you more. It's just an exchange of that.
Yeah. Don't get yourself taken on a ride by property spookers, so-called property investment advisors, or buyer's agents who are selling house and land packages or off-the-plan properties or apartments. Get yourself a copy of this book called The Millennial's Guide to Property Investing. This book is not just for millennials. The title suggests, but it's actually the most advanced way of investing in property. This book will relate to your clients, your colleagues, and other business owners. There are so many property spookers out there who have come out of the woodwork over the last 3 to 5 years, and there is so much misinformation out there that I had to write a book about all the F-ups that people can actually avoid in order to be super successful in the property investment journey. Some of these are really easy to identify, but they are so costly to fix once these mistakes are made. So it's a short book, it's easy to read, it has a lot of stories, it has a lot of examples, and it is a true guide for people who wants to do it themselves. My name is Moxin Reza. This is my story, and a lot of you will relate to parts of this story if you're not born in the riches and if you're trying to build a property portfolio that can last generations and help you improve your lifestyle along the way. So I give you a chance to come out there and have a read. Be kind, stay safe, keep smiling, keep investing, and please do check out the book. And a lot of people don't realize this, right? I have a doctor client who I had a really similar conversation with. Naturally people are in the tax saving mentality. They are not in the mindset of wealth creation. So it's all about, I need to save an extra $2,000 or $5,000 and negatively gear this property so that I can save more tax. And it's never about wealth creation. And so the more the debt, the better the wealth creation, right? And so naturally you need to make sure that, the banks love you, and the only way the banks can love you is having that inflow of cash flow, right?
Funny you say that, because I had a few sole traders that I've coached and concreters, massive cashies.
Yes, I know.
I've showed them, I said, look, if you go to a company, put all through the books, if you don't do cashies no more, extra few $100K, whatever it is, the borrowing power that he's seen. And then I said, every dollar is taxed at 26% lease. You know what you're doing. You got a goal in mind.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that I see with the companies versus sole traders, and this was my pain point, was basically coming to your point that, you are capped at 26%, right? As a sole trader, everything comes into your, tax return altogether with no intention of holding or retaining it into the company or distributing it to someone else using trust, right? So if you earn $1 million a year, then all of a sudden you are basically getting a massive tax hit and a massive tax bill. With a company structure, with a PAYG setup, what was an eye-opener for me earlier in the days was, I can park this money to basically drain it out later. I don't need this money right now. And so why should I pay 45% tax right now? Right? And, that was a game changer typically.
Exactly. And then you had the conversation with accountant, it's like, oh, look, if, you pay yourself $120,000 and the rest stays in the business. But they always say the word, but it's trapped.
Yeah.
It's net profit. You can do with it.
Yes.
You don't need to draw it down and buy a jet ski.
Yeah.
It's so many people kind of like, oh, but I can't touch it. Said you can. This creates loans between companies.
100%.
You still invest. Said you can use your business to buy fucking assets.
100%.
They're like, oh, can you?
Let's talk about home lending. Okay. And I think this is where, we are basically taking a notch up. Home lending into company differs significantly to home lending in sole trading. Let's give the users and the listeners, how does that typically work? What are we talking about when we are using a company for borrowing versus a sole trader?
Well, first thing, that as soon as you start to do company borrowing, and that's either using your company or holding in a company, the first thing the bank looks at, credit report.
Yeah.
If you're a sole trader, every single thing you get going under your personal inquiries. And then if it's in the commercial, we can get the most of them excluded across most of the banks. Car loans, any sort of lines of credit. If it's in the commercial, it doesn't exist. So it's about managing money better.
What about, so there are three things, right? So I'll tell you, and so I think you can expand on it more, right? So one is when you talk about sole traders, typically is you need 2 years before the banks even wants to talk to you. Majority of the time, if it's only 12 months, we're like, nah, it's too early. Whereas, company, as soon as it's profitable, banks love you. Bank wants to talk to you.
Yeah, those are the ranges.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And then you can basically also talk about sole traders are typically self-employed, right? Whereas company with the PAYG is not typically self-employed if you have a proper directorship in place, right? And so, maybe you can expand a bit on that, right?
Well, I think the first myth that everyone thinks is if you're self-employed, you need 2 years financials, which that, if you roll back into normal mainstream bank, you might hit the wrong bank. Yep, you need to. You got banks doing 18-month ABN, sole traders. You've got 12 months, but you can go to a Pepper and get 6 months.
Really? Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
But you got to understand everything is to do with risk. 2 years financials. Yeah. Adelaide Bank does 1. ANZ does 18 months. You just need to have a year's tax return.
Yeah.
9 months of that year, you got to use the 9 months. Now, that'll slowly go over because if you've got a company, like one of the lenders has, you can have a proprietary limited. You're paying yourself a wage with no fine. And as long as the accountant says that it can meet its financial commitments, you can use your pay slip 6 months year to date or 6 consecutive pay slips.
Yeah.
You can lend on that.
Yeah.
So for someone to think that they're going to go to their bank they bank with and get the right policy for the right situation.
Yeah.
There's so much of a range between what people think and reality.
Yeah.
There's like 70 lenders out there with 4,000 products.
Yes.
You may need one.
Yes.
You're not going to find it.
Yes. Yes. And I think, one of the biggest sort of bottleneck where I see the brokers playing a really big role, and typically when accountants don't understand is the add backs, right? Every bank adds different things back all the time. Some would look at company cars differently, and then you have personal loans and how do they treat depreciation? And, people even talk, sometimes even the creditors at the other side, right? The credit analyst on the other side does not even know as to, I've forgotten this to add back.
Funny you say that because I've had credit assessors that don't even know their own policy. Now, when you've got a small to medium business, few vans on the road, decent income, they'll go, oh, no, I made no money last year. I'll look at their financials, 120,000, 100,000, it's an asset write-off. I can add that back in full, straight onto the top line. Now, every lender looks at that differently. You roll into one lender and they'll go, no, it's weird because you got net profit. You've paid everything. That's your profit. You pay your tax.
Yeah.
The lenders will still make you include all the liabilities.
Yeah.
So that's not common sense. That's why they're a big fool.
Yes.
It's stupid. But then you get common sense lenders like Resimax and stuff like that, or even Macquarie.
Yeah.
Macquarie will do like sole trader. Even if you're a sole trader, they understand business liability. They will exclude it, which is rare amongst.
Yeah. Wow.
Resimax will exclude all business liabilities. But then you've got some tricky ones like another bank. You don't include business liabilities unless you rid off the vehicle.
Yeah.
So if you wrote off one vehicle, you include one liability. Some lenders will do, if you write off one, you include all four. So the chances are you ain't going to get it right. And if you roll into the bank, they don't know whose policies are best.
Yeah.
So to even get the scope of how tricky the self-employed space is, and if you walk into a bank and they say no, means they just don't deal with it. You need to see all policies, because one guy's, if you've got clean business, you might have a borrowing power of $2 million saved. You go to Resimac, you might have 3.5. You go to CVA, you might have 700,000.
Yeah.
All because of 1 year financials versus 2.
Yeah.
If it's more than 150%, 120, depending on the lender, they'll cap you.
Yes.
If you show 1 year financials, they take it. So you've really got to look at someone's the last 3 years and just go, where do you sit? How much debt you've got?
Yeah.
The best lender as possible. That's what we do. We just package you up.
Ultimately, that's what it is, right? It's all about, what years, like what frame do you show to the bank, right? How do you picture this particular profile in a way that the bank looks at it and starts drooling, right?
I'll see someone, I'll look at their drive, like, don't
Yes.
I said, you watch that. I said, don't watch that. I said, let's use last year.
Yeah.
It's all the time. Sometimes it's like the number one thing I'm doing at the moment. So much ODOC to BAS.
Yes.
It's just, obviously, instant asset write-off has come to an end.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses, it's a lot going in Solver, but there's a lot of businesses going to get a rude shock when they do their tax, because for the last 2 years, they've been just reducing their tax.
Yes.
But they've been growing. So there's going to be a lot of tax bills this year.
Yes.
And I seen a good post on LinkedIn. Just because they can doesn't mean they should. Accountants giving advice.
Yeah.
When they don't even run a profitable business, they pay YG and they don't even have an investment property. Like, it's so much inconsistencies. Just because you're qualified,
Yes.
doesn't mean you're an expert.
Yes. Yes. And I think that's a massive stereotype. I think a lot of people, just because they have the qualification, I don't think that you earn the right to provide advice just because you have a qualification, because you might not be the street smart that deserves to be servicing the company that is really looking to grow, right? Because naturally people come from a poor mentality mindset, right? They're like, save, put it into the bank account, tax save. They will never talk about, oh no, pay tax so that you can grow more, right?
It's funny because most people, trade-based businesses, they're just doing cashies all the time.
Yes.
And then suddenly you see their tax return is $70,000 every year. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, what are you going to do with that? You can't even buy a home with that anymore.
Yes.
But that's exactly why I became a broker.
Yes.
I was working in a factory and it was a good 6-figure job. I was doing all right. But then I was sitting down with brokers, bankers, and I'm like, they didn't even own their own house.
Yeah.
Why the am I taking investment advice from you?
Yeah.
And I realized, like, I only take advice from people who have what I want.
100%.
And that's why I thought, well, I'm just going to become a broker. That's exactly how I transitioned over. I'm doing what I preach. I'm just rolling over my super. I'm buying investment properties. I push the limits for myself. And so when I sit down with a client, they get all my mistakes. I've had to start again after a divorce.
Yeah.
And I will get to 3 times that in a space of 2 or 3 years because now I've got the knowledge.
100%.
And that's what I realized, wealth creation. It's just finance. It's property finance.
Yes.
I don't give a about house.
I think that
leverage.
You make such an important point, right? And I was listening to another podcast just recently, and this is what they said, right? If you've once been successful and if you have failed and then you grow again, then you grow twice as fast. And the reason being is that now you're not scared of losing everything because you've done it already. You're like, I know how to get there and come back. And so your risk appetite just hits through the roof and you go a lot more faster and harder. I think property typically is that game, right? Where, people who have learned it the hard way, their risk appetite and their advice is like gold words, right? Those are the golden nuggets. You need to basically grab it because they have seen the bottom and they've come back up and they exactly know the direction that and so to your point, I need to basically follow those who have been there, who have done that, who are getting there. It just makes a lot more sense.
And I think the mindset that works for me is I'll figure it out later.
Yes.
But also in saying that, I push pretty hard in every area, pretty outspoken.
Talk about one thing that I love accountants for, okay? And this is going to come out as a surprise. The accountant's letter, the magical accountant's letter. Talk to people, the viewers and the listeners, about the magical accountant's letter.
Accountants are like special little creatures, all right? Every second week, they're people above them, like, you can't sign these letters.
Yeah.
Like, have you read the letter?
Yeah.
It's most of the letters, they change them every time. At the end of the day, if you've done your tax on FY22, you haven't done your 23s, you need to buy a property, an accountant's letter is a way to go, you know what, I can see that, his management counts, he's tracking okay. Like, the best of my ability, I'm agreeing with the income he's saying he's earned. You're going to go, like, if say it's 200K in FY22, he's on track and you can see some income. You know what, 350, it's about the right, because on the letter, they are not liable.
Yeah.
Some of these letters, you're liable on that day only. And at the end of the day, if he doesn't pay his repayments, you're coming after.
Yes. 100%.
But in saying that, I can understand, I don't know where they think they can lose their license because I've never heard of a case.
Yeah.
But I could maybe 10 years ago, maybe.
But I think it's a smart way for a broker to use an accountant's letter to basically, amplify a person's, property portfolio as well, right? Especially like where you are a sole trader or a company and you had 2 great years, 1 bad year, whatever, X, Y, and Z. COVID was a typical time, right? So I remember during COVID times where businesses were really, really flat and you're like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Accountant's letter really worked at that time. People were like, oh, I've seen this business has done really, really well. It's still going to come back to, whatever its level were. They were still basically getting through the loans. And so it's a really important tool in a mortgage broker's pocket, to use, of course, wisely, right? Don't try to abuse it.
Well, that's right. And you got to understand, because at the end of the day, you have to, there's obviously we've got BID, best interest duty. That's it. Yeah. But an accountant's letter, it does make our job easier. or 2BAS low doc. At the end of the day, you're not going to, you're going to understand that the loan makes sense. If you've got 2BAS, because the BAS will annualize higher before things. But at the end of the day, when you get that loan and it's only losing $200 a week, it's a no-brainer. Like, it just speeds up the process a lot as well.
100%.
Especially some of these banks, man, they're pulling teeth.
Yes.
Trying to do self-employed loans. Some banks doing well, some banks doing
Yeah.
And it comes down to the experience because you know what, the clients don't care about start to finish. They just want the
100%.
It's literally all they want. And sometimes it's like the financial, one client had his tax returns, couldn't get the FY23s done in time. We just did a 2-BAS low doc, and they're pretty attractive. I think it was like
wow,
investment or something.
Nice.
And you go to Westpac, 6.7 interest only. It's like, well, it's kind of a no-brainer. And you know what? 5 docs in.
Yeah.
Wow. He doesn't care about the interest rate.
100%.
He signed an unconditional contract.
Yes.
That's telling me for 30-day settlement. So I was like,
his risk appetite is here already.
I was just like, you know what? This is where you're going.
Yeah.
And you know what? It just makes sense. It's so simple.
Yeah.
But then also some of the accountants letters at the end of the day, they'll write net profit on there.
Yes.
Then you don't know, why would you put that on there?
Yes.
It's like the best ones are, you kind of know where someone sits and you go, this is the income he's declared. These are the repayments.
Yeah.
I believe he can make these repayments.
Yeah.
That there removes the liability from the accountant. The broker has his own duty to understand that is reflected of what you've got at least.
Yeah.
Because if someone just rolls in the account,
yeah.
Come on, man, I need to see some more.
Yes. 100%. Yeah, no, definitely. And what are the biggest mistakes that the banks make in this space? Because ultimately banks are not the pleasant souls, right? The banks are not the angels in this space when assessing. I've seen, pretty stupid credit assessors in this space as well. Help, the users and listeners understand. What are some of the mistakes that you have actually gone out and fixed for some of these credit analysts sitting on the other side?
Sole trader, bank. I found out, we were pulling teeth. I got an MIR of about 20 things. 5 of them were things on the CCR that were under the business in the company social, because there was like a sole trader in the company part.
Yeah.
She was asking me for things when I went to the BDM. She was like, oh my God, that's not even policy.
Yeah.
It was painful. And then I found out later it was her first self-employed.
Wow.
Imagine. But I knew, I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And then she fought back. We got the BDM involved. Like, I know your policy.
Yeah.
That's not right. She's had to go around the credit assessor.
Yeah.
It was her first deal. But if it took her so long to say that, imagine if you just gave in. Imagine if it was a bank manager. Imagine if you didn't know. Like, you just got told no, but really it was a yes.
Yeah.
No, and that's the ones where you really got to dig in because they've got the policy wrong. Well, I had a deal recently, self-employed again, 2 years financials, and the assessor was saying I couldn't, there was 2 splits to a loan.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh, well, we don't do negative gearing. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's an investment loan. They're like, no, we won't do it because, and then she actually was trying to ask the evidence. Like, and we pushed and pushed and pushed. And then she admitted that she was, oh, sorry, I was wrong. But they just click a button and get a notification back.
Yeah.
That actually even calling you.
Yeah.
So you really got to push the assessors. It just comes with experience as well.
Yeah.
You know their policies. And so that's why you go there.
Yeah. Client
will sit down with you. You see that scenario, you're like, yeah, you go into that bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll give you 3 recommendations. You can only go to that one.
I think, one of the things that what I've always realized is why a mortgage broker plays a really, really important part, especially in this space, is, there are 10,000 things that, even the bank on the other side is, confused about, their policies because they change quite consistently, right? And so you almost have to wear 2 hats. You need to be an accountant on one side, understanding the financials, understanding the BASes, understanding, the depreciations and the write-offs and the interest on loans and, all of that crap. Plus, you need to be the broker as well at the same time, right? And so that's why, having a good broker ultimately plays a really, really important part in building a client journey.
100%. I always say the most important person in a business, accountant.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Second most important person, definitely the broker, because the broker has to align personal goals, business goals all together.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will have, especially there's more than one director. They're building this business with no clear goals. They've got their own personal lives. So they don't differentiate. Like, you got your personal life, you got your superannuation, and you got your business. A lot of people are just kind of just trying to push all 3. Till you go, no, you got all these different buckets we need to work on.
Yeah.
And it's like they never get asked those questions. We're like life coaches.
Yeah.
Well, I can't speak for everyone. I can't speak for all brokers. But it's literally like, like I get a lot of people calling me and then they'll go like, my broker's never asked me that before. So it's like a lot of, or even bankers, they're just selling a product.
Yeah.
So it's like, you really got to get, like, someone will come to me with a home loan.
Yeah.
Self-employed, wants to buy this. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I've just gone straight away like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I go, how can I get this guy to understand that this is a bad idea? Self-employed, turnover of 300 or 400K, comes to me and he goes, I want to buy this property in the middle of nowhere with a yield.
Yeah.
So, all right. So cash flow is important to you? Yep. All right, cool. So what about that $1,200 you whacked from the weekend? What about the cash you're doing? I said, your self-employed cash flow is not your issue. So it's like, it's not always, and then you know what it is? I ask really good questions. I bring them around to just tell them the fundamentals about investing. I don't tell people where to buy or what to buy.
Yeah.
But I tell them that is not going to align with their goal.
Yeah.
And that's what it really comes down to, is just educating people not to do.
Look, I mean, yes, I think both you and me both, I think we have zero tolerance for stupidity, right? They start chasing cash flows, interest rate low, they start buying properties at 2% yield, right? So, it's the true spectrum that you see all the time, people playing at. But if I bring this together for you, wrapping this up, what is one thing that you would say to, all the business owners out there, that, do this and not do that?
First thing I would probably say to them, you need to work on you. If you don't understand where you're going and why you're doing it, you're in business for. Because you could do way less work and earn good money working for someone else. 100%. So you really got to get clear on your goals. If you're not clear on your goals and you understand where you're going.
100%. And look, thank you for coming out here again today. Where do we find you?
Best place to find me is on Instagram, the.peter.savage or Savage Money. I do a lot of videos. I like to do a lot of education. I like to think I'm making finance great again.
Or finance very cool again.
Because at the end of the day, like, we're selling debt and we've just got to educate people, not do with money. And I came from nothing, and success and business and money was very important to me because I didn't have it. So it's my driver. It's just educating as many people as possible. Yeah. I worked out pretty quickly. I like just absorbing knowledge and just educating as many people, like riding tides. That's my kind of mentality, and it just flows through everything we do.
100%. And thank you. Look, there is nothing wrong in making a lot of money, right? There is nothing wrong in chasing money. There is nothing wrong in going out and seeking debt, right? It's just about managing it and doing it properly. Thank you very much for coming out today. This was great. This was awesome. For users and listeners, if you want to reach out to Peter, and if you can't find him, I'm pretty sure you'll find him on Instagram. But reach out to us. If you have any questions, comments, do write us back to info@helpmebuy.com.au. Take care, keep smiling, keep investing, be kind. This is Moss and Peter checking out. Adios.